school because the kids came to me and said, hey, we want to start a dance band. That was the beginning, you guys. You ever been told the whole history? Yeah, they had a weekly radio show for about 15 years. And it was called the Starlighters originally, until a group came out and made national, called Starlighters, so he changed the name to the Highlighters. You guys are carrying on very well the tradition, okay, very, very well. I'm happy and excited that I've been a part of that back from 1995 to the year 2000, okay? But I just want you guys to really think about that, let it sink in. It's kind of hard to let that sink in. Think of all the people, and it's thousands who've been in the Highlighters. You can go to this town, through this town, and there were people sitting in the audience who were Highlighters 40 years ago, 50 years ago, okay? So, good on you, great job, and keep it up. And I'll tell you what I always told my high school students when I taught at Temple High, whether you go on and you keep playing professionally, or if you go out and you teach, or if you're a doctor, or a lawyer, or you work at a cell phone store, or Walmart, keep playing your instrument. You guys have achieved a high enough level that you're really good. Don't quit. Don't let it go. All right? Do that. All right, I hope you had fun. All right, I'll let you go.
Enjoyed your band. Let's set the thing because I gotta go out and take a nap. I really enjoyed your band. If you ever need a coach player down the road, you're a professional player. Yes, I know. I just enjoyed your band.
All right, I'm ready for my clinic. Tell me what I need to do. Excellent job, guys. By the way, my name's Seth Carper. I'm a saxophonist, obviously, down in the Austin area. Prior to being in Austin, I did my doctorate at UT. Prior to that, I was up in New York City for 5 years and studying. Got to study some fantastic musicians there, both at college and out in the real world. And a few of those things were, being in New York, I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people and make friends with some very interesting people. A good friend of mine named Brandon Wright plays with the Charles Mingus Band, and he plays second alto and tenor sometimes, according to whatever chair he has to be doing. So I appreciate just even the program itself is such a great program. I had the pleasure to play a number of gigs with the lead alto player from the Count Basie Orchestra, Marshall McDonald. He's a good friend of mine. In fact, he played second alto to me on a gig with the Temptations and the Four Tops, who you guys probably don't know, but maybe you guys might know. And that was not the least bit nerve-wracking. But not quite as nerve-wracking, and I think the biggest lessons that I got, and I don't need to tell you guys the importance of listening because you've obviously been listening, but there are other things that, other lessons with listening that are achieved differently. And for me, one of my biggest lessons was I played about a half a dozen gigs with what is called a rehearsal band. It's a band that doesn't really play too many gigs. We play like 2 gigs a year, but we had 4 rehearsals, right? Two rehearsals or whatever. And I played second alto. The guy sitting next to me playing lead alto is a man named Jerry Dodgen. Anybody know that name? Jerry Dodgen was the second alto player for the first 5 years that the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra played. Jerome Richardson was the lead alto player. When Jerome left, Jerry Dodgen became the lead alto player. And he stayed the lead alto player for the next 7 years. So he was with the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra for 12 years in total. When he wasn't with them, he was with just about everybody else, including the great Count Basie Band. He would sub on the Count Basie Band a lot. And so I have to tell you this little story about that. Now, I'm from rural North Carolina. I grew up on a chicken farm. I had 5 people in my middle school band. And I was really lucky that my high school, middle school band directors were jazz musicians, because that is what, this is the reason that I'm not a chicken farmer to this day. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm tired of the smell of chicken manure. So anyway, I got a cassette of the Count Basie band, Basie Straight Ahead. It's a great Basie record. Anybody know that one? Yeah? I see some head nods. Well, I had hair down to my butt and I played guitar and I didn't care anything about Count Basie band, but my band director told me to listen to it, so I stuck it in my cassette player in my car, my $600 car. Okay. Now, it was a really fancy cassette player. Whenever you would finish one side of the cassette, it automatically flipped, and then you could hear the other side. And when it would finish that side, it automatically flipped. Well, I put it in. I heard the first couple of notes. I was like, man, listen, this is boring. Eject. 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 And it would not eject, but it would play. In fact, it wouldn't not play. And so for a year and a half, I drove my car around listening to nothing but Basie Straight Ahead. Now, that record that whenever I first put it on, I was so bored by, when it finally broke, the actual magnetic tape inside the cassette broke, it popped right out. Right? So I took it to my band director and said, Mr. Springs, I have another copy of this. And he gave me another copy, and I went back to my car, and I stuck it right back in. And I kept listening to it, because after a year and a half of it, you'd think I'd be sick of it. Nope, I was just in love with it, because the more you listen to it, the more you learn, right? So, this part of the story is to show you that I am a big Basie guy. I love Basie. I know my Basie. And through osmosis, I was a swinging sax player when I played Basie charts. So here I am sitting next to a guy who's played with Count Basie. In fact, he's played lead alto with Count Basie, and just about everybody else. Now, when you hear me play, you'll probably say, wow, you're okay. You sound pretty good. Well, I do sound pretty good. I was the weakest sax player in that section. That's how good this sax section. I mean, these guys were all monsters. You've never heard of any of them, I promise. But that's New York for you. So I'm sitting there with all these monster saxophone players, and we're playing a Basie style chart where we have a singer who sounds just like Joe Williams from the Basie band. And there's this section that he goes, that swing, and the whole band answers, doo-da, 2/8 notes in isolation. What do you do when you're playing a Basie style chart and you see 2/8 notes in isolation? Like that.
Long, short.
Long, short, but how long? Real long. And then put that short note as close to the next beat as you can, right? You really pull back and lay back on it. So the rest of the sax players are sitting there and we're like, okay, we're gonna swing this so hard. It's gonna be next Tuesday before the next note is heard, right? We're gonna lay back further than anybody's ever laid back on the planet. So he goes, that swing, doo-da. And every one of us were early compared to Jerry Dodgen. I've never heard a man lay back 2 notes the way that he has. And the second tenor player, who's now making some pretty big waves up there, Tim Armcost, calls me for a gig about a year ago. And says, Seth, can you play a big band gig with me? No, Tim, I can't. I live in Texas now. Oh, when did that happen? 4 years ago. Oh, remember those 2 notes that Jerry Dodgen played? Every time he talks to me, that's what he says. Those 2 notes. Now those 2 notes were such an education. Now you think, 2 notes, what's the big deal? Those 2 notes, that style, is the only criticism that I could maybe give you guys, is on the Basie chart, to pick those strategic places where we can really pull back on the time. Now, I can sit here and have you play it and say, let's do that here, let's do it here. The easiest way to do it is what? Go listen to the Basie band do it. Okay? I wrote a whole dissertation where I decided, okay, these are the spots with Marshall Royal, the lead alto player. These are the kind of spots where he pulls back. It took me about 50 pages to say, here, go listen to this 100 times. Got it? Cool, there you go. So that's kind of the most important thing in that. So what I thought I would do with the rest of the time at the clinic is actually focus on the other aspect of jazz and being in a big band, which is improvisation. Okay, how's that sound with you guys? We'll do a little bit of playing on some tunes. It's because you guys did a lot of improvised solos in this, yes? Okay. Which one was it that had the most solos?
At the
Refresh my
house.
memory.
It's that blues at the house.
Yeah, the blues. Excellent. So are we all familiar then with F blues enough to where I can tell the rhythm section, you guys play me in F blues, and then who wants to take a solo? Are we comfortable enough to do that? All right, rhythm section. Why don't you guys play me a chorus of F blues up front while we decide who's going to blow?
Take your shoe on.
Hey?
Put it in your shoe, put them on your shoe. Or use the cymbal bend.
So, while they're getting that ready, who wants to take the first solo? Tell me name? Malachi, yes, Malachi. Ready? Let's give you a running start. So give us a chorus of blues up front. Okay? A 1, a 2, you know what to do. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do, I'm stopping you already. I want you to be a little more aggressive. Okay? Again, this is really, really a picky comment to make, but if I had to say one thing, you guys are super polite. Maybe a little too polite. I need a little more like aggressiveness, a little more from you. Ready? The whole group. 1, 2. Yeah, that's right. All right, now guys, they're on the 4 chord. You got 8 chords. Lizette?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lizette. What was Lizette doing behind you?
She was kind of complimenting
Tell me how.
the dynamics. I would really
No, say that again.
I really pay attention.
Exactly. And now, I'm not saying this to pick on you. I'm saying this to kind of bring it to your attention, that it seemed to me like it was the rhythm section over here, and then there was like this invisible wall, I think that Donald Trump built or something that and then you were over here. I want to see you get more, I want to hear you get more involved with what the rhythm section is doing, so that she feels like, oh, maybe I'm going to compliment actual compliments. Because what I heard was her going, bling, bling, bling. I don't really feel anybody talking to me, so I'm just going to play like this. But she's going to get a little bit more aggressive with the rhythms, yes?
Okay.
Yeah? And so are you. That's what I want you to focus on. So what are you thinking about while you're improvising?
Well, I kind of heard as a whole, like we choir, so I would do choir with them, and then I come back up again. And then I also change like the register where I'm playing, and like try to play lower, and then as I start that, I come back up again.
Those are all great things to be thinking about. I'm going to give you one more thing to think about instead for a little bit. I want you to pick 2 or 3 notes and build a really solid idea. Like, boot up, boot up. That's 3 notes, but it's a single idea. And then I want you to repeat the idea. so that you really get it inside of your ear. And then I want you to see about, and these guys are gonna try to play out whatever the ideas that you come up with. They're gonna try to play off of it, and then you're gonna start to develop the idea, okay? You guys know who J.S. Bach is?
Yes.
Johann Sebastian Bach, you know? You ever listen to any of his music? And how he'll take this little 4-note idea and the entire rest of the piece is that in some variation or something? That's kind of what I want you to think about, just as a different way of thinking about it. Try it. 1, 2, Good, that's a great idea. Repeat it. Good, do it one more time. I like that variation. Same idea, different note. See what I was doing? I was trying to do your idea, and then I tried to do whatever I could come up with on it. Now watch this. This is a lesson for all of us of the strength of that idea that he came up with. I'm going to play his idea, but I'm going to play wrong notes. Okay? Now, besides the idea, what else was different in the way that we approached it? Besides what I did with the idea, what else was different?
You took it more and played around with it more.
Right? Besides that part of it, what else?
Does that move the wall?
No, because honestly, there was a wall between me and the rhythm section at that point too, because I was trying to make them do what I wanted them to. It's the confidence, the volume, the sound, the time feel, right? You got good time feel and good sound, you're 90% to having a good solo, okay? So be confident. Now watch this. This is how strong an idea is. Okay, I'm gonna take the same idea. Something, whatever it was. It was like that, right? Here we go. 1, 2, Gonna remind myself. Those were all wrong notes, man. I mean, they were all over the place. And it still sounds cool, right? Because the idea is so strong. When you're improvising, I think one of the most important things is to have good ideas, like solid foundational ideas that you can work on. Now, the other thing that I try to do whenever I'm improvising, and that I noticed in some of our solos, is I like to tell a story. Like, I like to make an arc. And usually the arc is not like this. It's usually like this, right? It does this, then it comes back down. So the ending of the solo is still important, but it's never going to be quite where I started, right? And what I felt like in our solos sometimes was that we were really concentrated on picking good notes, which you did. That we sacrificed kind of the arc of the solo and building the intensity at a certain point. And I was going to give, I think I gave you a suggestion on the recording. By the way, beautiful job with pork pie hat. Absolutely gorgeous. As a point of reference of where the arc is in the entire piece, it comes to the double time section at the end. I hear that as less of like when to build it, as when to just kind of sail over the top of it. I think the building of it actually comes a little bit earlier when you're playing your solo and coming into the melody a little bit at the end. So can we do that? We're just I know we're running out of time here, and you guys are probably hungry. I know I am, and my brain is starting to shut down after 48 bands. But let's give me a look at the ending of that. Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. Yeah, let's start at 75, and when it gets to your double time section where you were doing, I'm going to take over for you. And just give you an idea, a little different take on what what I'm hearing is the way I would solo it. Okay? 1, 2, 3, let me see if I can play the melody, if I can remember it on this tune. It's the last A half of the tune, right?
Well, that's the melody. Is that?
Right, yeah, I just where it is in the form, I'm just trying to remember. Here we go. So this is 75. 1, 2, 3, the only thing that I would say overall with the band is just we're looking for those peaks. I'm really getting picky with you guys. I wasn't talking about peaks and valleys with the other bands. I was like, can we play do-da instead of da-da? So this is a pleasure for me to work with you guys about that kind of thing. Do you have any questions?
Was that?
Go ahead.
You're talking about like interacting more in the soloist.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
All right, so I'm a really crappy piano player,
Okay.
but I'm looking for in a soloist is that whenever I play something that's pretty obviously an idea, that the pianist or the guitarist is complementing that, whatever that means. Sometimes it means playing exactly what I'm playing. Sometimes if it's like, I'm going, you know, if they hear me going that way, they don't have to play. They know exactly what I'm playing, but they're playing a version of it. You know, that kind of like complementing what I'm doing. If they hear me play a note, this is the best. Like, so last night I got to play a jam session with Kenny Werner, right? Again, whatever. So anyway, I played a note that was like a questionable note, right? The chord was something like this. And I maybe played something like, right? And so Kenny, over that, is like, oh, okay, here's a polychord. You know, that makes what you just played sound really awesome, you know? And that's the best thing about an accompanist is, you know, they're not an accompanist, I'm having a conversation with them. And, you know, when you get more comfortable with the comping, we were just talking about this with the guitarist, that there's actually melody in your comping, like what you're doing here in the pinky or whatever, the top voice, you're going to create melody, and I'll hear that melody being created sometimes, and that's where I steal it from. And vice versa, the same thing here, like I'm listening what the drummer did, like, you know, I'm a very kind of rhythm-oriented person whenever it comes to improvisation, so I'm listening for a rhythm that maybe he doesn't even know that he played. He just was like over here swinging away and, you know, a little bit of chatter, and that little bit of chatter was something that I went, oh, that's a good idea. And it's always the ideas that you don't think are the best that someone else steals and makes better, you know, and that's the fun of it, you know. And last night, again, the tenor soloist was playing, we were playing a tune, and he quotes another tune, right? He plays a snippet of another melody over this tune that it doesn't belong to. Well, he played the first 4 measures of it. Kenny Werner finished the quote. He went on and started playing something else, and Kenny Werner finished the quote. He finished the song, his melody, in his comping with the melody in one of the voices and then harmonizing the melody as he was going. I mean, so there's lots of different things about the interaction, but to begin with, it's the simple, I mean, I had one voicing there, and I just listened to something that he did, and when I found a hole, I tried to answer what he played rhythmically to begin with, and then eventually, you know, if I wasn't such a crappy piano player, I would answer it maybe melodically as well. Does that kind of get to the answer a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Bueller? All right. Thanks so much for letting me work with you guys. I hope you got something out of it.
I've got tickets for tonight.